Hello everybody, you're watching Making It Look Great number 5. My name is Moltanen, and we're going to start this tutorial in Adobe Illustrator. As you can see, I've got a path, got a basically text that says blood, as you see, and this was drawn using a brush tool and my Wacom tablet, but that's not really relevant at this point. We're going to move this path into Adobe After Effects, but first we're going to create some cool graphics based on this path. And since I'm not much of a painter or illustrator, I really have to depend on all the brushes and cool features of Adobe Illustrator to actually make this look the way I want to. So I'm going to open up the brush palette here. And if you don't have all these brushes here, all you have to do is click here and then choose Open Brush Library. You probably don't see it right now because it's off screen, but it's there. You go to Open Brush Library and then you choose Artistic and Artistic Ink, Paint Brushes, or whatever fits you. So I'm going to choose one of the brushes here, and let's just try this one. Okay, looks really nice. And right now I'm just going to save this as a PNG file, which I already did. And I'm going to import that file into Adobe After Effects because it's much easier to work with that way. And then we're going to take the path and basically copy the path alone without all the additional styling that you've got here and use it along with the stroke effect. So consider that I just saved this file and I want to move this path to Adobe After Effects. If I would copy this path right now and move it to After Effects, I would get all that styling as along with the path, and that would be pretty hard to handle, so I need to get rid of this brush at this point. So to do that, I'm going to open up the brush options again and simply click here, Remove Brush Stroke, and I'm back to the original. Okay, so consider that done, and now it's time to move to Adobe After Effects. Okay, so here I am in After Effects with my bloody text PNG. And now it's time to paste the path that we just copied from Illustrator. So I just select the layer and paste it. And of course, show the path. And it fits right in. Very good. So now we can use the stroke effect to reveal the text. And just go to the effects palette and select stroke. Like that. Reveal original image. And we can set the brush size to something bigger, like that. And we want to use all masks sequentially. And that should fix it. That should do it. Let's see. Okay, so if we're going to animate the end property, we're going to get this nice effect. And yeah, it is nice, but we can do better than that. But first, let's just see how it looks when we actually animate this property. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, it does look nice, but it's missing this brush feel to it. Because right now, if you take a look at it, it really looks like it's some sort of a mask revealing the text. We've got always nice rounded edge here. And I don't really like that. I'd like this to be a little bit more like a paintbrush, so that we can see each hair of the brush as it strokes the text onto the paper or whatever we're going to use. So let's just try and do that. We're going to create a new brush, and it's going to be 50 by 50. Hey, After Effects reads my mind. That's cool. Brush, and let's make a new solid, whatever the color. And we're going to use circle and set the radius to 22. Okay, that fits right in. And let's also use roughen edges on this so that, it doesn't look like a circle. We can increase the border, I think. Maybe scale it down. No, I think that the scale is actually right. We need to change the stretch width or height in here so that it looks something like this. Okay, that's fine. Maybe let's play with the scale anyway. And maybe with the border as well. Okay, that looks fine. And we're going to use this brush to paint the text on. So I just go back to our bloody text. We can turn off the stroke effect for now so that we can see what we're doing. And we need to put our brush in here like so, and we need to animate it along this path. We could use the mask as a position path, but unfortunately we've got 7 separate masks, so we'd have to copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste each mask separately to the position of this brush, and this will take a lot of time. Actually, as long as if we would be animating this by hand. So I actually did that earlier, so let me just jump right into it. Okay, so here we are. I've renamed the comp to reveal text because that's actually what it's doing. And as you can see, I've got this brush going along our stroke here, basically our text. And as you can see, I also have the stroke enabled at this time. And I have a reason for that, but we can turn it off for now so it's not, too confusing at this point, because I get confused already. Okay, so the brush is following the path, and I've used an option for animating that is called Rove Across Time. I basically select all the keyframes and choose Rove Across Time. You don't see it, unfortunately, because it's off screen. I just tend to put the things off screen, but believe me, it's there. If you turn this on, you ensure that the speed of the whole animation is constant. And that's pretty important, because otherwise you would get some, abrupt changes in the speed, and it just wouldn't look right. So once again, here's the path. The brush is going along the path. So the trick here is to actually make this brush paint over our comp, and we want to use whatever it paints as an alpha matte for our bloody text here. Let me just turn off the mask so it doesn't show up. So how can we do that? My first guess was to use the echo effect, so that basically, we see where the brush was before, but unfortunately that doesn't work very well, and having an echo effect with extreme parameters so that echoes for a long time is pretty render intensive, and I actually found a better way to do that. And let me just illustrate it. Turn off the text and turn off the transparency so we can see what's going on here. We're going to create a new adjustment layer. Let's move here. Oh, and you'll also notice that the brush jumps into place from far away place basically, and it finishes off also outside the comp. And I have a reason for that. You'll see why that is in a second. So now we're going to apply CC time band. And this is a very cool effect. Let me just show you how it looks at default. I don't know if you can see it, but it leaves a nice trail. Right? It goes along the path and leaves a nice trail. Pretty cool. So we can of course play with the blending options, but it doesn't look anywhere close to what we need. But it does look pretty cool anyway. So how can we make this work? Well, the trick here is to change the transfer mode to composite under or composite over. In this case, it doesn't really matter. And you want to set the accumulation to 100%. Also, please note that when you're using CC time blend effects, you may run into some artifacting after you'll be scrubbing the timeline like crazy like this, because this is just the way this effect works. So if you get some unexpected results, make sure to clear the cache, move to the first frame, clear the cache again, just basically move to the first frame and clear the cache, and then try to render it out and see what happens now. Pretty cool, huh? And now we're going to use this as an alpha matte for our bloody text PNG. So let's just go ahead and do that. We can turn the brush off, turn the bloody text on, turn the transparency on, and set the bloody text alpha matte to the alpha matte of the brush. Let's see how that works. Oh yeah, works very well. Much better than the usual stroke, right? So right now, if you would have some problems with the alpha, basically, or just, having some areas too transparent, then you can turn on the stroke again, and that would basically fix some of those problems, or not. It really depends on the case, on the graphics that you're using and such. So just keep that in mind, that you can try to play with this parameter as well. Okay, so far so good. And now, since we're happy with the results, I think it's a good place that we can make a proxy for this comp, because like I said, when we're going to scrub the timeline, we would always have to clear the cache and basically be careful what we're doing, because we would always have to start rendering, previewing from the first frame, because those CC time blend effects actually need to know the state of the frames before the frame that we're actually on. So it's a little bit annoying. So let's just basically make a proxy out of this comp. So let's just select this comp and add it to a render queue. I'm just going to use some settings here. Okay, faux PNG, yeah, that's fine, because we need transparency as well. So RGB plus alpha, that's fine. And let's just call this proxy reveal text MOV. Okay, and just render it out. Okay, our render is ready, so all we need to do now is to set it as a proxy. So let's just go ahead and click Set Proxy and choose the right file, and this is the one that we just rendered. And now if we go back to the comp view, we're going to see a warning that says proxy enabled, and that means that we're not actually rendering anything, we're just referring this pre-rendered file, and that's pretty good. We can scrub the timeline, as you can see, and it all works, and it's all good. So, okay, with that done, we can now move to the interesting stuff. Let's make this drip with blood. But on the other hand, no blood. What a beautiful idea. But no, I should stick to the code. The code that John taught me. He made me the man I am today. He made me record those tutorials, so I just got to follow the code of John. Let's make this more... To make this text dripping with blood, we can try a few different approaches. There are basically two general approaches that I always see. The first one is so-called procedural, which means that basically all the animation is calculated by itself based on some parameters. And the second one is, of course, manual, when you do everything by hand. But I found that the best solution most of the time is basically marrying those two approaches together. So you try to find the things that you can do procedurally, and the ones that don't really turn out well when doing that way, you do manually. So I think that in this case, we can try doing just that. So let's just first try doing things procedurally, and then we'll move forward and see how it goes. So my idea of making the drops actually is to select some random areas of the actual text that we have here, and then using some particle emitter to emit particles that will fall down slowly. And we could use particular to that, but I think it would be like shooting a fly with a cannon, and since we don't want to shoot and kill any flies, we're going to use particle playground to do that. So let's create a new comp and call it drip map. And of course we need to make it the same size and everything, so I think it was 600 by 300. And we need to put our reveal text in there, like that. And let's just try applying particle playground. Okay, those are the default settings. We need to disable the cannon, particles per second 0, okay. And we want to move to layer exploder, that's right. And set it to the layer that we are using right now. Just see how that looks. Oh yeah, and working with particle playground, it's always best to start from the first frame, because that way it's just much faster. Okay, so you get the basic idea how it works, but this is definitely too much, right? We only need to select a few areas that we will, choose as emitter points for our blood. So let's just go ahead and try to do that right now. Let's turn off the particle playground for now. and find some areas of interest. And obviously, those should be like the most bottom-like areas of the text, right? Of the type. So I actually found a cool way to do that. Let me just show you. Let's just try bevel edges or bevel alpha. I don't really remember. No, bevel alpha for sure. Okay, let's just turn this off and use bevel alpha. Okay, that's better. Edge thickness, light intensity to maximum. And check this out. Now we can choose which areas should emit particles. Isn't that cool? So basically everything that's white will be emitting particles. Very cool. So let's set it to 180 degrees. You can even increase the thickness, as you can see. But I think that something around this will be just fine. Let's try this. Okay, but that's not all. That's still too much. So I think that we can create a new solid layer and apply some fractal noise to it. And while we're doing that, well, we're doing that because we're going to use the Luma matte of the fractal noise on top of this reveal text. And that's going to basically select a very few areas within those white areas. So we're basically narrowing down the selection that we did with the bevel alpha. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. Let's set the complexity. No, the complexity can stay at 6, I think. We need to set the scale down and maybe move to a linear noise type. Yeah, that should be just fine. And increase the contrast and lower the brightness. Something like that. And of course we can animate it. We can play with the evolution. I think that's good. So let's just use one of my favorite expressions, time multiplied by some number. Let's just make it a pretty high number, so like 2000, so it looks more like a noise than fractal noise actually. Okay, I think that should be fine. Maybe let's try some different types. You really need to play with those settings. It's, you know, just trial and error. Just see and, you know, try different settings and see what works for you. It actually took me quite a long time to find the settings that I liked. So I'm just going to show you the basic approach here, and then I'm going to switch to the comp that I prepared earlier. But the whole process of creating it is exactly the same. So the only different thing would be the settings, which, like I said, is just trial and error, you know, tweaking the parameters, contrast, brightness, speed, and such. So basically, let's just say that this looks okay, and we're going to choose Luma matte for that, and let's just see how that looks. Okay, see the point? And now at each white point that we have for a very short period of time, we're going to start emitting particles only in that point in time. So basically we're going to have a lot of drops dripping from, you know, all of different places. And the cool thing is that it actually follows our reveal text layer. So it's not starting to emit, you know, immediately from all places. It's just starting emitting along with the text that is being written. So that's pretty cool. And the last thing that we need to do is actually due to the way that Particle Playground works. And if you've seen my previous tutorials on this plugin that you can find on my website, you know that for some reason I really never got into it that much. But for some reason it works best with transparency. So we're going to remove all the transparent pixels, all the black pixels, and leave only the whites in. And those are the ones that will start emitting particles. So let's just go ahead and create a new adjustment layer. And as you can see right now, it's actually hard to see. Let me just turn the color to, you know, gray or something and turn off the transparency. We got those white pixels, but we also have the black pixels, and we don't want those. So we need that adjustment layer to actually get rid of those blacks. And we can do that by applying Luma key on top of the adjustment layer and key out darker. That should be fine. See? And there's also one cool thing we can do. We can basically increase the thickness of those little dots by applying filters like Minimax or something like that. And those are, again, things that you have to play along with and see if they work for you or not. I think that in this case we can just try to thicken it up a little bit. Well, that's too much, maybe 1. Or try the other way. Basically apply it after the Luma key. And do it like that. See if it works. Not really, not in this case. So, okay, let's just lose the Minimax filter in here. If I remember correctly, I did use Minimax along with some other effects to, basically just smooth the results out. But that was due to probably different settings of the fractal noise and stuff like that. So, once again, the basic approach here is to take the reveal text that we had. Let me just turn it off again. And apply bevel alpha to choose the areas that you want to emit the particles, and you can choose whatever you like. If for some reason you want the particles to go to the right instead of down, you can also do that by simply changing the direction and changing the forces, which we're going to apply in a second. So okay, let's just stick to what we have. Bevel alpha on the reveal text, that's good. Then fractal noise to select the areas and use the Luma Matte to do that. So right now we've got the white areas along with the black areas. And then Luma key and turn off the blacks so we get only the white dots once in a while. That's the basic approach. So let's just see what my original comp looked like. Okay, here we are in my original comp. And yeah, we also get some white dots in here. I hope you can see those. And let's just take a look at the reveal text. Bevel alpha, and we have Minimax applied. Why is that? Let's just analyze it. Well, this basically bolds the type up, as you can see. It gets rid of all those small pieces and basically makes it a little bit thicker. And that's good. Bevel alpha. Then we've got the fractal noise, which looks like this. Oh, we also have the regular noise applied to it. That's interesting. With the overlay. Okay, so let's just turn the fractal noise off. And this is how the noise looks alone. And then on top of that, we've got the fractal noise, which looks like this. And yeah, and those white areas basically overlay with the noise, and that creates those spots of noise basically that you saw like this. Okay, this is pretty clever. Okay, and now we of course set this to Luma Matte. Apparently I used Minimax as well in here, but I actually decided not to use it, so let's get rid of it. And of course let's turn the adjustment layer on so you can see what's going on here. And alpha levels. Oh yeah, this is to get rid of those small areas that actually will probably create more problems, because remember, if we're going to have a lot of those points that emit particles, we're basically going to get one big red blob, and we don't want that, right? We just want to have small drips of blood falling down. So alpha levels actually takes care of those just a little bit. And then CC time blend. Let's just clear this. See what happens when I clear this comp? We really need to make a proxy out of this as well. And let's see alpha levels. And let's turn this off for a sec. Yeah, it gets rid of all those of all those semi-transparent areas. That's good. So we get only small spots in here. That's good. That's actually very good. And then CC time blend to basically smooth this out a little bit. So let's just move to the beginning of the comp, clear the cache, and see how it looks. Those small points basically show up and then they fade out. And that's thanks to CC time blend. Okay, good. So in each white point, we're going to have the particles being emitted. So that's pretty cool. And as they fade out, they emit less and less particles until it's gone, basically. Okay, so I think we can make a proxy out of this comp as well. So let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, the render is ready, so let's just set it as a proxy, just like we did before. Set proxy, file, proxy drip map. That's cool. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next step, which is creating a resistant map. And what that is, let me just show you. If we're going to start emitting blood particles, we would like them to stop at some point. Well, at least I'd like them to stop at some point. And what's interesting is that if you change the reveal text comp, like change the text, change the animation, change whatever, and of course render the proxy again, then everything else will react to it. Our drip map will react to it, which we just did, and we based it on the reveal text as well. So this is very cool in the procedural approach. You change one thing, and everything else that is based on that thing is going to adapt. So that is pretty cool. So basically doing it this way, you can create a whole title sequence very quickly. You just have to pay attention on the one text that you do, and then you just, duplicate the comps and change the text within, and that's it. So, okay, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's just create our resistant map. Let's just create a new comp and call it drip resistance. And let's apply our reveal text to it as well. Okay. First, we need to, of course, invert it. So just apply the invert filler and choose invert alpha. That's good. Remember, the black pixels, so the opaque pixels, are the ones that are going to stop our particles from moving, and the transparent ones won't affect it at all. And now we need to thicken up the alpha, right? We need to make this hole in the alpha channel a little bit bigger, so we can use Minimax to do that. Like that. Let's set it to alpha and color, and then just try setting it to the minimum and just thickening it up, like so. And don't shrink edges, of course. Yeah, that is pretty good. And maybe let's try wave warp to add some diversity to it. Pinning all edges so we don't get those artifacts in here. Something like that, maybe a little bit denser, like this. Maybe let's change it to noise or smooth noise. This is again a place where you have to play with the parameters to get it just right. Maybe let's try reversing the order of the effects. Now it doesn't actually do any good. Okay, let's just increase this a little bit more and maybe add some blur. Fast blur. Repeat edge pixels. Let's blur it like 10 or so. That's good. And I think we need to move this down, because right now if we're going to start emitting particles, they're basically going to stop where the text stopped. Let me just put another instance of the reveal text so you can see what I'm talking about. Right? It's going to start dripping and it will basically stop here, and we want it to stop a little bit lower. So to do that, we're going to use the offset. And let's just apply it to this layer, and let's put it on top of all other effects, like so, and just move this mask a little bit lower, like that. And now we can actually see how it's going to look. So maybe let's just increase it just a little bit more, maybe try a different mode, like that. Doesn't do much actually. Oh, sorry, minimum. That's too much. Okay, with the wave warp, without wave warp. Okay, I think that's actually not that bad, and we can maybe even try some alpha levels. Okay, that's a little bit better, I think. It'll start stopping in here, and then when it reaches the black, it will just basically stop moving. So yeah, I think that's good. We can even move it a little bit lower, maybe just a little bit. Okay, that's fine. So let's get rid of this reveal text layer here. So this is our drip map, and see, it's also animated, so that's pretty cool. We actually don't need it to be animated, I think, but oh yeah, the wave warp is animating. We need to turn it off. Wave speed 0 so that it stays. Okay, I think that we don't need this map to be animated, so we can fix that simply by choosing a frame where the text is already written and just going to time, freeze frame, and that should fix the problem. Okay, yeah, that's good. So this is our drip resistance. So now what we have to do is we need to create the actual dripping blood. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's call this dripping and create a new solid layer and apply particle playground like so. And again, turn off the particles for the cannon. Okay, we need to set the layer map to, yeah, of course, we need to put our drip map in here as well. Let's just see if it works. Okay, nice. And remember, this is based on the proxy that we just rendered, so we don't need to worry about scrubbing the timeline like crazy. Okay, so let's just turn the map off and go ahead and select the layer exploder, to our drip map. And let's just see if that works. It should work. Okay, works pretty fine. But it looks more like a fountain at this point, so we need to adjust the settings just a little bit. So let's just go ahead and see what we have here. Radius of new particles. I think we can set this to 1, maybe even smaller. 0.7, that's fine. And we need to change the velocity dispersion as well, maybe to a small number like 2, or maybe even 0. Let's try 0. And that should create just a vertical line. Okay, that's not bad. But the particles are falling way too fast, so we need to go to the gravity and change the force to what, like 80 maybe? Ooh, even less? Okay, let's try 40. Okay, that's much better. And the only thing left to do here, I think, is to apply our resistance map. So let's just put it in. Turn it off, of course. And go to the settings of our particle playground and go to the persistent property mapper. And here we need to select our drip resistance map and set map red to, or whatever the color actually, because the map is, is grayscale, so we don't need to actually think about which color we're setting. Let's just set it to Y speed and set the max parameter to a negative number. Let's try -2. That usually does the trick. And yeah, let's just render it out and see if it works. Need to render a few frames. Okay, the particles are falling and they should stop. Yes, they are stopping. See? It stopped in this point. This one should stop somewhere in here. Okay, that looks good. Very nice, actually. And since this is pretty render intensive, we need to make a proxy out of this one as well, just to make everything work a little bit faster for us as we record this, as I record this tutorial, and as you work along with it. So let's just check again how it looks. Okay, it looks fine. So let me just make a proxy out of this one, and we'll move to the next step. Okay, so the proxy is rendered and set as a proxy, obviously, and I also trimmed the comp down to 10 seconds. And this is how it looks right now. And this is almost what we're looking for. We're almost done. The only left thing to do is to make our final comp and add some displacement maps so it doesn't look, as straightforward, basically just dripping down. But, if that's what you like, then we're already done, basically. We only need to make the final composite. But I think that we can actually do some displacement maps and make this blood flow a little bit to the sides and, you know, stuff like that. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's create a new comp, call it displacement, and create a new solid. Let's just make some room here. Add a ramp. Then add some turbulence displays. Okay, let's set it to twist or twist smoother. That actually looks like strings and stuff like that. Let's just try to set it up. Amount to a huge number and size to something smaller. That's actually good. Maybe let's increase the amount. So we can just try tweak the settings a little bit and see what works best for us. No, I think that twist smoother is actually a better choice. Okay, so the last step is to apply the curves, to introduce some different colors in here. I'm going to draw a curve that looks something like that. And also we're going to move to the reds and maybe move them down a little bit. Okay, or maybe actually up. And the greens. Yeah, okay, I think that looks fine. The whole point here is to have a few different colors, basically red and green, and we can use those two colors to displace our dripping blood in, you know, different directions, basically. So that's good. That's always better than having just a grayscale map. So that's our displacement, and let's go ahead and create a final comp. Final comp. Like that. We can also make it 10 seconds long. Okay, that's fine. And we need to put our reveal text. We can put our texture here. What else? We need to rotate it. Like that. Here's our reveal text. And here's our dripping map. So let's just take a look how it looks at this point. Okay, pretty nice. So the only thing I have to do is to, you know, set the colors and do all that fun stuff, actually. Okay, so let's just turn those two layers off for now and play with the texture, play with the background. So let's apply some fractal noise. And let's change the transfer mode to color burn. That should create some nice red areas. Okay. And yeah, change the noise type to spline. Maybe increase the contrast. Lower the brightness just a little bit. Also scale it up like that. And we can also do a nice vignette. And if you've seen the tutorial that I referred to earlier on my site called the Uses of the Circle, you know how I'm going to create a vignette here. Circle. I'll just put the circle in. Increase the radius. Just make some more room here. Okay. Invert the circle. Set the color to black. And blending mode to normal. So that basically paints the circle on the original layer. Feather, and set the feather to a large amount, like 300. Okay, that's pretty nice. We can also go ahead and turn on our reveal text layer. Just move till it's written here and maybe create a new adjustment layer. with a mask, elliptical mask tool. Okay, and let's just grab those 2 points in here and just move them down like so, like that, and those 2 as well. Okay, and of course feathering, maybe 200, and I want to subtract, and right now I'm going to play along with everything else that is in here. So curves, and just add a contrast curve, or basically just darken it up. Okay, nice. And fast blur, repeat edge pixels, what, 50 maybe? Oh no, that's too much. 20, 10. Yeah, just basically play along with this. That looks nice. Okay, I think I'm happy with this. And let's just go ahead and change the color of our reveal text layer. So go ahead and apply fill and change the blending mode to multiply. Okay, that's not bad, but doesn't look right yet. So let's apply some fractal noise. Change the blending mode to what? Overlay? No. Multiply maybe as well. Okay, that's better. And we want it to basically look like the blood is dripping. So to actually do that, we need to go to the transform and play with the offset. If we're going to move it down, this is what we're going to get. And this is actually pretty fun. Okay, so let's just do that. But first I think we can increase the contrast and lower the brightness a little bit so it looks like a thick, dark, almost black blood. That's very cool. Okay. So just twirl this down and play with the offset parameter. And this is the point when we're going to do some of the things manually, and by that I mean creating actual keyframes, which we didn't do so far, with the exception of the reveal text comp when we have to animate the brush or the stroke. Okay, so let's just create some keyframes for the offset, move it here, and move it down quite a bit. And let's see how that looks. Just to see if the speed is right and everything, and see how the brush actually makes the difference. If we would use the regular stroke, it wouldn't look this good. We can see all those separate hairs on the brush that basically paint the blood. I really like that look. Especially here when it's going, up and down on the same path. It's going to increase the intensity of the blood. Ah, that's just so sweet. Okay, I think we can see some minor changes going on in the fractal noise, which basically emulates that the blood is dripping. That's really cool. Okay, so I think we're good with this, and the next step is to turn on the dripping blood and also colorize it a little bit. And I think that we can actually use the same settings that we used for the reveal text. So let's just copy them and apply them to our dripping blood. And yeah, that looks good. We can try darkening it up just a little bit, maybe like that. Okay, sweet. Very nice. And this is the place where you can basically play along and do all sorts of stuff. You can try making the blood bleed onto the paper and basically make those trails a little bit more intense. And to do that, we can actually use the same technique we used for the reveal text with the brush. So let's just go ahead and duplicate this layer. Also, change the blending mode to multiply in here and in here. Let me just turn this off for a second and see how it looks with the multiply. Okay, makes the whole difference. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to focus on this second instance of the dripping blood. So I'm going to turn the first instance off. And I'm going to apply CC time blend. And I'm going to set it to composite over and maybe set it to 95%. And let's see how that looks. Maybe let's turn off the dripping, the reveal text layer for now. And that should create some interesting effects. So basically, whenever the blood drip was before, it's going to stay there for 95% of the time, basically. So it's going to leave the trails of where it were, and that's good. It's taking some time to render, even though we have a proxy enabled. So you see, this is a little bit render intense comp, but I think it's worth the effort and worth the time. Let's see how it looks. Okay, good. Since we got it to set it to 95%, those little drops will fade out eventually. And it really depends on the look you're after. I think that maybe 95% is a little bit too less. Let's try 99 or 100. Let's just put 100 and leave it like that. We're not going to render it again because it takes a lot of time. But we can actually use this. And see, when I moved across the time quite a lot here, we don't have the trails because they were not rendered. It's just like I would hit the clear button here. So whenever using CC Time Blend, you actually need to render from the first frame to see the final result. That's a little bit annoying, but it's worth it. Okay, so I think that we can try applying some blur. Fast blur, okay, and let's make it, of course, repeat edge pixels and maybe set it to small number, like 2. And also we can try using vector blur, and that creates a little bit more fluid results. Let's just try it. Amount, that's too much. Maybe 5. And try maybe constant length. That's interesting. Okay, and if we put the original on top of that, that may actually look pretty fine, along with the reveal text. Okay, but it really depends on the look that you're after. So, like I said, this is the place when you can go ahead and play along with all those settings. So let's just take advantage of the displacement map that we just created and focus what we can do with it. So let's just go ahead and grab our displacement map, put it on top or on the bottom, doesn't matter. Actually, let's maybe put it on the bottom. And go to the dripping and apply displacement map to it. And we're going to use our displacement map. We're not going to offset horizontally, we're only going to offset it vertically. Oh, sorry, the other way around, of course. Vertically to 0 and horizontal to maybe, what, 2 or 3? Maybe let's try different settings, maybe green. Doesn't work that well. Okay, I think we can use this displacement on the reveal text on its own, and here we can use turbulent displace. Yes, I think that will work much better. Turbulent displace. And let's set the size to a small number like 10, and the amount to something a little bit larger. Okay, see, now that is looking pretty cool. So let's just see how it looks from the beginning. Okay, this looks really amazing. And I think that this is a good place where we can end this tutorial, because from this point on you can just play with the settings and try out different things and add those displacement maps and do all sorts of stuff. And you know what, actually I think that maybe I can show you how to use that displacement map anyway, because we made it and I didn't show you how to use it. So displacement map, and let's just apply it to the reveal text and check if it works. Horizontal, no, we don't want to offset it horizontally, we want to offset it vertically. And yeah, maybe let's try using the green channel. Okay, that's good. It's a little bit too much, but we can of course animate it. So let's just create a keyframe here and create a keyframe at the end and set it to maybe what, 12, and at the beginning want it to be at 0. Okay, let's just see if that works. And the blood is dripping. Okay, it's moving down a little bit, as you can see. Very nice effect. Okay guys, so like I said, this is the point when you can play on your own. For example, try creating an effect that this text actually bleeds to the paper, and you can try doing that by simply duplicating this layer and applying some other effects to it, like maybe Minimax to make this a little bit thinner, and yeah, minimum, let's try that, and with alpha like that. Or no, actually the other way around. Maybe let's make it maximum and move it to 5, to a large number, maybe 6, and then use roughen edges and just make the border quite big. See, and that way you can animate the border to make the bleed, and you know, just put it below the original reveal text layer, and you've got so many options you can do here. So I encourage you to check out the project file, which is of course available on this DVD as well, and you can see how the original comp looked like that I made the original render from. And all the different settings that I use on all of these layers are basically to tweak the look of the blood dripping and of the paint and everything. But the whole idea behind it is exactly as I showed you in here. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. See you in the next tutorial. Happy After Effecting.